Welcome to Levels of Connection, where we discuss how human connections work and why they're so important. Welcome to Levels of Connection. In today's episode, I'm speaking with the CEO of International Coaching Federation Global. This is Magdalena Mook. It was such an enjoyable conversation. We spoke about the value of coaching and the ripple effect that it has on society at large. We spoke about the value and the power of reflection. We spoke about the value of creating partnerships and so much more. Enjoy. Welcome to Levels of Connection. I have with me Mrs. Magdalena Mook, Magda, to us. And it's a real pleasure to have you. I know how busy you are. I know your travel schedule is amazing, to say the least. So I really appreciate the time that you're spending with us today.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
And it was a real pleasure having you earlier back in the beginning of October in Cyprus as well. So I was amazed that you are the CEO of International Coaching Federation, an organization that has over 60,000 members, spans across 160 countries. And I love the way that you immediately related to everybody in the room in such a down-to-earth, humble, and friendly manner. So thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. I still have very sunny memories of the visit to Cyprus.
It gives you a good excuse to come back soon. So,
Absolutely. I got still plenty of places to explore.
so we're talking about connecting today. So let's start from there. What does connecting mean to you, Magda?
I think connection is the basis of any relationship. You can do not much or nothing unless you connect. You connect to a purpose, you connect to a goal, you connect to the desired outcome, and most importantly, you connect to people who are there with you or maybe on the other team, but you connect so you can understand, you connect so you can design maybe new ways of approaching things, and you connect to truly be in service rather than just running alone and maybe after a while realizing that there is nobody following.
I love what you're saying, especially about connecting in service, and I think you're really embodying that with the role that you have as the CEO of such a global organization that is dedicated to coaching, which is really serving others at the end of the day.
It certainly is, and many not-for-profit organizations. ICF is a not-for-profit organization. Many not-for-profits are, as we tend to call it in English, the purpose-driven organizations, and that's it. The purpose is our guiding North Star. The purpose is what we always check against when we discuss new opportunities or risks, and purpose is always what needs to be put as first and foremost, other conditions and other factors notwithstanding. So I think that for most of us members of ICF, leaders in ICF for sure, including definitely yourself, the purpose is why we join and why we are part of this organization.
And I remember one of the things that we spoke about when you're in Cyprus was your strong belief and vision about being in Davos as well. And I wonder if you could share a little bit more about that, because that truly embodies a bigger vision and a bigger connection to other things.
Yeah, Davos is a little bit of a shorthand, but yeah, I want us to be in Davos.
Mhm.
And it is a shorthand for being in the most crucial conversations that are happening right now in the world. Davos, the World Economic Forum, is a gathering of the most impactful, influential, and powerful, for lack of a better word, individuals, organizations, institutions that really do shape the future. for the planet if you take it as a collective. So there has been a talk at Davos about leadership development, about human-centric leadership, about coaching itself. But coaching organizations are not present in Davos as a partner, not as a whisper in a hallways, but as a partner, and partner for designing and delivering a solution. There are so many issues that the world these days is dealing with, and unfortunately, most of them not that pleasant. From climate change to wars to natural disasters, economy, you name it. So I truly believe that coaching is part of a solution. We're not single-handedly saving the world, but we are definitely a part of a solution. And as I said, more and more organizations and individuals are employing coaching, are embracing coaching, but coaching is still not something that is being a part of a design. Coaching is often brought in as nice to have, as, oh yeah, and then maybe we're gonna work with a coach that's gonna help, rather than from the very beginning being a strategic application of the modality that we know from our research, anecdotes, and very serious stories, that it is really making a difference.
So we know that it works, so why not put it in from the beginning, right? Instead of either, as like you said, a nice to have, or a lot of times after, when disaster sort of happens, to try to
Right.
fix things, which is, double the effort.
It could be, absolutely. But as we said, when coaching is a part of the original design, then definitely the chances of success are greater. I think we did talk about it when I was in Cyprus, that we did research with Human Capital Institute around coaching and change management. As we know, just about every organization is in some stage of change management initiative or change initiative. And we also know from research other than ours that 90% of change initiatives do fail. So our research indicated that coaching can really accelerate the pace of successful change, and also is a very significant modality that supports change initiatives. So put together, change management and coaching creates a very powerful methodology and very powerful offering to organizations. But again, coaching has to be brought from the very beginning. We identified with the Association of Change Management Professionals, with whom we are partnering. ICF is partnering with ACMP. We identified 7 insertion points of coaching into a change management process. And again, we have enough evidence to say that when it happens, if it happens, the change happens, the change initiative is successful, people are more aligned and in agreement, and also, as I mentioned before, the pace of that change is a little bit greater.
It's really interesting, and about change management and the relation to and the levels of success, and when combined with coaching. How was that connection made with ICF and the change management?
ACMP.
Yeah.
I think that there are 2 reasons for it. One is very pragmatic. ACMP, Association of Change Management Professionals, is an association much like ICF. And with the associations operating in generally the same field, we tend to know each other, and we certainly are in conversation. So that was the first spark of inquiry, if you will, about, let's see what we can do together. Because what we found fairly quickly is that we have some overlap with our membership. Meaning that there are quite a number of change management professionals who either are members of ICF or do have credential. ICF credential, hold ICF credential. And conversely, there are plenty of ICF members who do have certification in change management. Not surprising, really, because again, most of coaches working in organizational setting will be dealing with change initiatives.
Yeah.
That's the reality. But the other slightly more scientific reason for it was that research shows that change initiatives succeed or fail for the very same three reasons. And those reasons are leadership, communication, and resistance. When you think about it, coaching is a proven methodology for leadership development.
Yes.
Practically every coaching relationship does have an element of improving communication. And resistance, this is, well, partly combination of leadership and communication, but it is a process of allowing an individual or a group to come to their conclusions why change is needed and why it is actually a good thing rather than a bad thing, and how they can partake in that initiative. So three crucial elements of a success of failure or failure of change can be supported and is being supported by coaching. So it seems to be such a symbiotic relationship that it would be silly not to pursue it. So we've been working with ACMP for at least 5 years now. We have joint task forces, we have a memorandum of understanding, and we believe that we are supporting each other. In other words, it may be that coaching is a support mechanism for change management professionals, and conversely, knowledge of change management process is very supportive for coaches who, as we said, oftentimes face or support their clients in the midst of some kind of a change initiative.
And it sounds like a win-win and a triple win for everybody that's going to be that enjoys the benefits of this collaboration as well.
Yeah, some time ago, and again, this is not a surprise for many. Partnerships, leveraging somebody else's network, leveraging somebody else's knowledge base, is something that truly allows organizations to expand their influence, quite frankly, through and to different groups of professionals, and through them to their clients. So ICF partners with several different organizations. We of course are cautious about who we partner with, and that win-win-win is definitely one of the very significant criterion of how we choose those relationships and those partnerships.
And it's all about connecting truly with one another, either organizational level or human level. And to take it also more in, I admire what you're doing and the way that you interact with people. And I'd love for you to share, some of the things that you do, because and how you develop this culture or this way of communicating with people, because I see you traveling from one country to the next, and I've seen you in Cyprus, the way that you went from the different diverse groups of, in the morning you were with CFOs, accountants, in the evening you were with coaches and other and diverse people from more than 20 countries. And you were in each room, in each setting, you were very at ease with how you communicated with every individual, even though each person was had an extremely diverse background. Share a bit how you view that.
Oh, I think I was born that way, quite frankly. I enjoy people. I just enjoy people. I take energy from being with people. But being a little bit more serious, I think it is about the deep sense of curiosity that I do believe I seriously had from early age. Um, I'm sure I owe it to my parents who exposed my brother and I to lots of different things, different experiences. We've been traveling. They've been taking us to also meet different people. We were my parents' house was always a very open house. We always cooked for like twice as many people as we had at the table because you know somebody's gonna come and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna need to feed them. But there was very open house, and we were always allowed to observe.
Mm-hmm.
um, I said allowed, but I think invited to observe, to just listen to the conversations. And oftentimes, of course, we were not understanding half of it. So afterwards, we'll say like, "Mom, Dad, such and such said that. What does it mean?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that curiosity, I think, has been innate to my nature, and I think that this is it, because if we get too attached to our own opinions, if we get too attached to our point of view and our lens of how we see the world, we're missing so much.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, every single individual is an individual, hence a different person. And especially in a setting like ICF, you mentioned 160 plus countries, 60,000 people. It is not easy to run a cohesive organization having quite a variety of opinions, but that's, I think, is one of the most enriching aspect of ICF. We listen to people from maybe countries or organizations where coaching is new or newer, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see how it lands. We listen to what they find maybe difficult, maybe not well understood, maybe a little counterintuitive. That's all very, very significant input into creating the strategy for ICF and for coaching to have even greater impact, to have greater influence, and to produce better results.
And I love what you said about curiosity. One of the reasons is because my main, motivator in life, curiosity, is about keep being curious about many things.
Mm.
How were you? You mentioned also a bit of your childhood. How were you at connecting while you were growing up?
I grew up in Poland. I was born and raised in Poland. And I'm of certain age. So yeah, the connection was an inevitable
Mm,
because after, well, school is school and you connect with people, and quite frankly, my especially my elementary school had very, very diverse group of
mm,
kids who were coming from at least three very different backgrounds, because my school, it was a small school. My parents were scientists, so there was the research place,
mhm,
research institute in the middle of nowhere. So there were us kids of the researchers, there were kids of the local village, and then we have kids from the orphanage that
okay.
was not far from where we lived. And we did not see differences between us. It was like,
Mm,
that's Jack, right? That's John. You didn't say, oh, that's Jack from the village or John
yeah,
from my orphanage. It was Jack and John.
yeah.
So, and then our time outside of school was spent with friends and colleagues, playing outside. So, so I think it was just natural that we created connections, uh, because that was our environment. That was the environment of play and work. I had best friends from school and then best friends from playing outside. Um, and as I said, it was just something very natural to me to relate and to try to find similarities with people rather than differences. And if there was a difference with honestly, the only a small child can master, Just ask questions. Ask questions.
You're describing the how to become the global leader of ICF, I think, the path, the diverse upbringing, being open, asking questions. It's like you were destined to have the role that you have today with all the.
Well, that was not by design. That was
Yeah.
definitely not by design. As you know, my degree, my
Yes.
undergraduate degree is in economics, and my master's degree is in international trade. Has very little to do with coaching, but also, of
Mm.
course, by the time I was in college, coaching was not popular for sure, and barely even mentioned by its
Yes.
name and by its applicability as it is right now.
And what advice would you give people, especially in business, where there's a big emphasis on obviously getting results, being very stressed about getting those quarterly and annual results, how to balance that with connecting with their people in their organizations and in their communities?
There is so much conversation, especially in organizational setting, about the engagement of the workforce, and we hear these horror stories about people not being engaged, about some percentage of workforce being actively disengaged,
Mm.
and to me, that's lack of connection. Because if people cannot connect with the purpose of the organization they work with or for, then you will never get them engaged. And the engagement actually translates very, very directly to results. So for the leaders, if they do not have a way to connect with their own teams, that probably leaves the engagement of the teams with a big question mark. So focus on results and bringing those results to be could and is being supported very, very directly by better connection, by being able to explain the purpose of the organization, and more so, explaining how those teams and individuals partake or can partake in the success, how they matter, how their work is important, because if they didn't do whatever they do, the job could not be done. We all heard those great stories, right? When the janitor at the NASA was
Mm.
asked what he was doing, and he said, "I'm sending a man to Mars or to the moon."
Yeah.
Right. No, he was not cleaning the floor. He was sending
Yeah.
a man
Yeah.
to the moon. And that's exactly the connection. Somebody took a great pride in explaining what the program was all about and how every single person had their role to play.
You know what? After all this research and all these testimonials and the proof that what you just said, that when people understand better and connect better, the results are better as well. Why is such a majority of the business world not getting that?
Because it doesn't happen overnight,
Hmm.
I think. It is a process, and sometimes it's not a quick process, which starts with the leader themselves. We know that many people in leadership positions were trained, were educated, were prepared for their role in a different era, in an
Mm.
era where that human centric leadership was not front and center. It was more command and control, right? It
Yeah.
was top down. It is not easy for those leaders to themselves understand and align with a different style of leadership. So that could already be a process which
Mm.
doesn't happen overnight. And then the teams are so diverse these days. We were talking briefly, even when I was in Cyprus, about 5, some would argue 7 generations working side by side in a workplace. They want things done differently. It is, again, not an easy task for a leader to be able to motivate those teams in a way that resonates with them and with the individuals on a team. And we know it with coaching so well that more times than not, the real impact of coaching is not right after the session or even during the session. Sometimes you see the results 3 months after you finished your relationship with your client, maybe 6 months later. So, and that's part of the problem with measuring the success or measuring the return of coaching initiatives, is because one has to be patient and one has to have the vision of longer term impacts, rather than, okay, if in a period of 1 quarter we don't see significant gains, then it means it's not working. So I think that this is a little bit of that patience with measuring impacts, and also focus on supporting leaders to understand and be more comfortable with that new way of leading.
I love what you said about switching from the old command and control to a more inclusive. Also, the leader, is called to show also that they're human, that they're vulnerable, and it's not comfortable for many leaders to do that.
Yeah, and the flip side of the same coin is that in some organizations, the change in a way the leader operates may be met with suspicion because the people in those organizations are also used to the boss having the answer to everything.
Mm,
And when the boss suddenly starts asking questions and inviting input, it's like, what just happened? And why?
yeah.
The person that I look up to have all these answers seems not to do that. So as I said, it's a process. It's not just a very simple application of new attitude. It is a process of change, and we just talk about change management.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it takes a little while.
Yes. And it takes connecting that with the connections with people. What would be the ingredients to succeed in that transition from a getting closer to your people?
You mentioned one of these aspects or facets, and it's vulnerability. That's perhaps the one being the most difficult, because vulnerability for some equals weakness,
Mm,
and it's not. For many, asking for help is a weakness, and it's not. It's actually a very strong show of strength. I don't know. As a group, we might figure it out. Help me,
hmm
right? Um, Curiosity, we talked about that. um, and also inclusion in a broadest possible way of defining the term. Inclusion of diversity of opinions, inclusion of diversity of styles, and even inclusion of a diversity of thought coming from those different generations. One leader has to listen, and really listen for more so not for what's said but what's not said,
mm,
what's behind the statement, and trying to figure out if things are not being said, why not, and how to bring them to the surface. These are definitely the traits of modern leadership, but as I said, it even 10 years ago, maybe even less than 10 years ago, if you mention those characteristics, people will be just shaking their heads.
mm,
It's like, not for my, $5 billion
yeah.
organization. But now, when you hear that the army in many different countries are utilizing coaching, that generals are working with coaches, that heads of states are working with coaches. It's like, so maybe there is something to it, where reaching the highest potential is not reserved just for some. It's
Yeah.
absolutely accessible, should be accessible to every single person. Either the, and we say leader, we didn't even talk about leader, who is the leader. Everybody is a leader in different circumstances, for different tasks, for different reasons. Every single person is a leader. Either their title suggests that or not.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I love coaching is because it's human centric. You put the human in the middle, and you unfold that whole spectrum, and what you just said, and the impact is amazing, in both in business life and family life and in the
Yes.
community, and the benefits of of the person that is being coached then is like a ripple effect throughout whoever they come in contact with.
Indeed, and there is some good research about it. How a person being coached, um, almost, innately and by default picks up some of those characteristics, and they start talking differently to their teams, talking differently to their family, talking differently to their community. And before you know it, people are more aware, and people are also becoming more curious, and maybe also picking up some of those characteristics of also that single coaching relationship actually touches significantly greater number of people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, with regards to, you mentioned the way that you connected as a child, and the way that you connect now. How can you reflect on, for a little bit, you were always open, from what I understand, and the way that you're describing and the way that I'm feeling that you communicated and you connected. If you reflect how you connected as a child and how your ways of connecting evolved, how was that evolution, if there, in the way that you see it?
Um, I think that as a child, you just absorb, you just absorb, you just absorb, you just
Mm,
absorb. As you become older, you form your own opinions, you form your own stance, and it becomes important that you can stand up for what you believe. And this is where I think that the world these days has difficulty, and it is closing themselves for other opinions. So being open for other voices and opinions does not mean, to me, by any stretch of imagination, that you forgo your own values, that you forgo your own opinions. You're just being an informed person.
mm,
As one of my colleagues from ICF, he retired recently, but he before he joined the ICF, he was actually working as a school principal, director of the school. And oftentimes, he had the pleasure of discussing issues with students who are not behaving exactly to the norm. And sometimes the kids would say like, "But Mr. Rogers, you just don't hear me." And he would say, "I do hear you, I just disagree." And that's brilliant, because
mm,
hearing somebody is to say, "I respect your opinion, and I may not agree, and that's okay, respect mine."
mm,
So I think that this is what changed as I became older, is to be very comfortable with holding to my position, at the same time being very open to other opinions, other voices, and sometimes, of course, when it's warranted, to shift
mm.
and to embrace a different perspective.
And connecting that with the culture of ICF, that am I correct to say that every 3 years you review the competencies? So depending on where how we evolve as human beings as well. So that's what I'm hearing, is that you're open. You still have your own boundaries and your own opinions, obviously, but you're open to listening to the community, to the industry, and to where uh, things are going and how we're evolving. And you may change stance on some competencies and evolve them.
Yeah. The competencies are reviewed every 3 to 5 years. It depends on
Mm.
that, because it's a lengthy process. It's almost
Hmm.
2 year process to review the competencies and validate them. Code of ethics is also, well, one of the competencies is reviewed every 3 years religiously. And yes, because what is extremely important for ICF and for coaching is to be relevant.
Mm.
Relevancy means that we have to respond to the environment that we exist within. And that environment is changing around us very quickly, very rapidly. I've been with ICF for a long time, as you know. So when I first started, we did not even have a conversation about internal coaching. We didn't have conversation about coaching educators, about sponsors of coaching from
Yeah.
organizational standpoint, team coaching. Now we have this whole huge conversation about artificial intelligence and technology in coaching. So we do have to change the competencies and ethics to be relevant, to reflect what is the practice of coaching services. And at the same time, as you said, be a guardian for not stretching too far or crossing the line between coaching and maybe some other
Mm.
modality. There is such a huge difference between utilizing tools offered by other professions, such as change management, versus absorbing or stretching what we call coaching to something that perhaps is not.
Mm. Mm. With regards to reflecting back and perhaps giving advice to your 20-year-old self, what would you advise to young 20-year-old Magdalena Mook about connecting?
About connecting. Um, I would say do even more. Do even more of that. Expand your group of people. Be curious just for sake of curiosity.
Mm.
Of course, there is always learning, I believe, coming from curiosity, but just do it for the sake of having basic knowledge
Hmm.
that allows you to understand better. As I said, you don't have to agree, but you understand. You understand where others are coming from. You understand why certain things are perceived differently by different people, and that helps because, as I said earlier, I believe we have more in common than not, and I think that lens helps you see that maybe quicker and maybe with less trepidation.
Hmm. Love that. And for the person that would be viewing this episode, what advice would you give them to take action 1 hour after they view this episode around connecting?
It's easy for it has been always easy for me, as we discussed, to connect. Just I'm just one of those, that in kindergarten was dancing and telling stories and what have you.
Hmm.
And I do understand that people have very different ways of being and attracting others. So for those who are more outgoing, I would say just think about that person that you always want to make a connection with. Maybe look at your LinkedIn. There are people connecting all the time, and then you don't know very little about them, maybe just their name and the fact that they reach to you to connect. Learn more about them or reach out saying like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? For those for whom it's more difficult, maybe think about re-engaging with somebody that you have been connected and maybe you haven't talked for a little while. Maybe you lost contact. So it's not going to be a cold call, if you will, but rather reinstating the connection that once existed and existed for the good reason. So maybe those are little steps that would take some courage no matter what, and take some time, but hopefully would open up the perspective of deeper connection.
Yeah. Thank you so much for today, Magda. And as always, you have an open invitation to come to Cyprus.
Thank you.
Last thoughts for today. What did you find useful from our chat today?
Every time there is an invitation, and you offered it a couple of times, at least today, to reflect, that's good. Reflection is seriously a very powerful tool. And I think that these days we are running, we're not walking, we're not strolling, we're running, we're sprinting often. And there is not enough time set aside for reflection. It may be a reflection on a childhood, it may be a reflection on just what happened earlier today. But that space of reflecting, harnessing the learning, even if the learning comes with some nervous energy, that's important. That's important. And you just invited me to remember to reflect and to make sure that the wisdom of the conversations, the wisdom of reflection stays within.
Well, thank you for your wisdom today and for all the insights and for sharing your knowledge and your experience. I really appreciate it. I know that you're a very busy leader, and we appreciate the good work that you're doing for all of us. And again, you have an open invitation to Cyprus. Hopefully, the next episode together, we'll have it on the ground here. Thank you
There
so
you
much.
go. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much again for the invitation and for very, very insightful conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Levels of Connection, and thank you for your continued support. Please feel free to leave below your comments as to what you found useful from today's episode. See you soon.